y ellos están encargados de los puertos. They're in charge of all the ports in South Florida. I just learned that stevedoring is the name for when ships unload and load the cargo, or even cruise ship passengers. So without further ado, he comes from a traditional family who started in Cuba and had the biggest ports in Cuba, and it's been handed down already three generations, and he's an expert in this field, and we feel that this is an important issue, and I think we're going to enjoy this presentation, and we're handing it over to Frankie Rovirosa.
Thank you, Eddie. Good afternoon. My name is Frankie Rovirosa. We're a third generation shipping family. My son Andres is also in here, and he's the fourth generation, along with my older son, Frankie Rovirosa also. My grandfather started the business in Cuba in 1938. In 1961, he founded the company in Miami under the name of Farobi Shipping. The first slide we see is one of our operations in Port Everglades. That was developed in 2005. It's one of the most modern terminals in South Florida. Basically, what you see in front is a electrified rubber tire gantry, which is a container handling equipment that's prevalent in the big ports in the world. That gives you the opportunity to densify, and you can stack containers 5 high and 6 across, with a truck lane at the end, so you can maximize your capacity and the footprints at the terminals in Port Everglades and Miami. As we know, Cuba, the Brazilians funded and invested in the development of the Port of Mariel. Basically, they invested almost $900 million, and they finished a prototype port that we'll be talking about in this presentation, and making a comparison between our operation in Port Everglades and the Port of Mariel. A little bit about us. The Port Everglades terminal is built on a foundation consisting of over 45 years of maritime industry experience in services such as stevedoring services, terminal operation, cruise terminal operations, warehousing, distribution, vessel husbandry, general agency, equipment maintenance and repairs, and logistics and transportation. This is a slide of our terminal and a vessel that we operated recently. This is a 10,000 TEU vessel, which is a large vessel type that's calling South Florida in Port Everglades. You can see that the 3 blue cranes are the new cranes. They're capable of lifting over 100 tons apiece. In this particular operation, we discharged and loaded 3,500 containers, and it took approximately 3 days, working 24 hours a day. A total of mix of cargoes, perishables, reefer containers, dry containers, all the commodities you can think of. And again, exports from the South Florida region to the Med, India, basically, this particular vessel. You can see that's the terminal in the background. Alongside in the back, you also have the cruise terminals adjacent to it. This is a slide of the overlay of the port itself. There's 4 different terminal operators in this facility. There's a total of 10 STS cranes, which are called gantry cranes, which are shipped to shore gantry cranes that discharge the containers from the vessel to the point of rest in the terminals. This port handles over 1 million lifts a year, TEUs. It's very efficient. The trade lanes are global, basically. There's a lot of cargo that's destined to Latin America, the Caribbean, and Central America, which is the main trading ports. It's not changed.
That always happens
It kind of
in
freezes.
live
There we go.
presentations.
Yes. Well. Okay. Okay, this is a slide that is taken from the terminal side of the facility, overlooking the vessel, and you can see that there's 3 cranes working simultaneously, discharging and loading containers into the facility. Basically, depending on the number of container lifts that's being discharged and loaded from each particular vessel, you assign the number of cranes and the number of operators in each vessel call. The key features: able to simultaneously order and operate 4 to 5 gantry cranes per berth. Container handling capabilities includes 4 65-ton rubber tire gantries, electrified, along with a combination of 10 top loaders, 4 reach stackers, and 3 empty handlers. All of these are container handling equipment that we use to discharge from the trucks that are discharging from the vessel to the point of rest in the terminal, and subsequently they're loaded into the trucker's chassis for conveyance onto the local warehouse by the airport of Paloca, you name it, in South Florida. Tampa, Orlando, Fort Myers, throughout the intermodal connectivity to the final destinations. We have a cargo cross-dock facility with 9 covered transfer stalls. We have 585 shore power receptacles for live refrigerated container storage. There's a lot of commodities that come from Chile, Peru, perishables ranging from avocados, asparagus, blueberries, grapes, every
All
type.
produce, yeah.
All produce, and you have a lot of shrimp and seafoods that also come in. At one time in one vessel, we might discharge 240-foot units of refrigerated cargo. These refrigerated containers are also inspected by the USDA in our facility, where we provide a dock, and we open up each container and they look to make sure that everything's in order for the U.S. consumptions locally. On-dock intermodal container transfer facilities provides quick and reliable transfer connecting to all major railroads across North America. That's basically the rail, which FEC has a facility right in front of our terminal, and we transfer it to relay cargoes for imports and for exports also. So it provides a low-cost intermodal for the goods that are imported and exported throughout the U.S. Semi-automated truck gates, providing the lowest truck turn times in South Florida. We invested in terminal operating systems that are the latest in the shipping industry, that have the technology to dispatch a quick turnaround on the trucks that are approaching our facilities. Soon to come, appointment systems for the trucking community. This will alleviate the peak times in our terminals, and you can evenly distribute the traffic flows and prevent any backups or delays. On-port warehousing and distribution facilities are available, uniquely positioned as South Florida's gateway to the Americas. Okay. We're going to see some short clips of time-lapse videos that my other son, Frankie, took while working a couple of vessels at the Port of Miami.
This is Port of Miami right here, this picture, right?
Yeah, this is the Port of Miami, that's correct. The containers are discharged to trucks, and they're conveyed to the resting point inside the terminal facility. You can see you average around 35 containers an hour per crane.
Now, does the majority of this come into Florida or the whole country?
The majority to South Florida.
To South Florida?
Yeah.
So between Port Everglades and Miami, you're serving 10 million people around there? Or?
A little bit more because it's also the West Coast. And also to Orlando, Tampa.
Oh, okay. So
it's throughout. This is a cruise ship that is discharging and loading baggage and band equipment to the top deck of the Seashore, which is an MSC cruise vessel in its inaugural voyage. So all the band equipment, all the speakers, everything for the stage was lifted on top, 14 decks above, 140 feet. And then the luggage is coming through the side hole to the point of rest inside the cruise terminal. They're distributed, checked, x-rayed by customs,
wow,
and segregated on the discharge. And the low back is a little bit more complicated. This is a Disney cruise vessel that we're loading with telehandlers, which are the long-range forklifts, because the ship is separated from the apron, so you need a little bit of flexibility to pick up the loaded pallets and extend them to the shell door openings of the cruise vessel. Okay. We're going to get a little bit into the technical specifications of our operation in Port Everglades. Our annual throughput capacity is about 225 vessel moves, 310,000 TEUs per year. Draft, 12.8 meters. Total berths, 3. Quay length, 2,400 meters. Terminal area, 18.6 hectares. Maximum vessel size is 11,000 TEUs, it's about 1,100 feet long, with a beam of 240 feet wide. Number of quayside cranes, 10, with 3 superposed Panamax cranes and an additional 3 additional superposed Panamax cranes that will be delivered in October 2023. And that is a summary of the technical specifications at Port Everglades. I think you should sit down here next to me. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We now see the slides of the Mariel technical specifications. Their annual throughput capacity is 580,000 vessel moves, 800,000 TEUs. Their actual lifts in 2019 was 325,000 TEUs. And that was at a time where the U.S. under Trump stopped the cruise industry from operating into Cuba. That was in July of 2019. Basically, they have not reached their capacity of 800 TEUs. Their quay lengths are 702 meters. Total berths are 2. Terminal area, 30 hectares. Their maximum vessel size, 6,000 TEUs. Number of quayside cranes, 4. There's a lot of silt that builds up in the Port of Mariel. There's constant dredging maintenance in that facility. So you can see that their draft limitations at 12.1 compared to Port Everglades is at 12.8. And the difference is that it takes a lot of money to keep up with the dredging program at Mariel. In the future, you could see that there is land capacity in Mariel. There could be more of a phased-in development to extend the capacity of the port. They would have to add on more STS cranes, more equipment. And the biggest issue here, if you don't run your equipment and maintain it properly, you don't know what's going to happen when you see an influx of big volumes coming at you simultaneously and your equipment is not in top shape to handle it. So that's one of the biggest worries that the shipping industry has when Cuba opens, the capacity to handle the trade. We are capable of simultaneously working up to 5 ship gangs without disrupting terminal operations. Port Everglades terminal equipment fleet is ready to work 24/7. On the slide on the left is a picture of a top loader operation. You can see it's like a forklift with a mast and a big spreader. Everything's hydraulic, and their capacity is about 45 tons. You can stack containers 5 high. In the middle is the latest in technology, the electrified rubber tire gantries. Those lift up to 65 tons, but you can store containers 5 high and 6 wide. In the third picture on that slide, you have a reach stacker. A reach stacker can lift up to 45 tons, but 3 containers wide. So if you have a container that has different commodities, and you can reach, according to your truck arriving at your queue, any one of those containers. It gives you flexibility, and thus gives you production in your operations. There we go. This is an overview of our terminal from a bird's eye view from the top. You can see the mix of equipment inside the facility. You see the RTDs, you see the top loaders and reach stackers working throughout the facility. The agriculture inspection facility with 116 wheel positions, all undercover with 160 dedicated shore power receptacles. 2 ERTG rows, each 1,600 feet in length, engineered for 1/5 high, stacking with diverse container capabilities that includes 432 shore power receptacles distributed in reefer racks. Container handling equipment, 4 Coney cranes. They're built in Finland. Electrical RTGs with a 60-ton capacity and twin pick capabilities. 10 Taylor top loaders, 42-ton capacity. 4 Taylor reach stackers, 42-ton capacity. 3 Taylor empty container handlers, And you have also 41 Ottawa tractors, which we call mules, which can pull 50 tons in back of the flatbeds from the ship side to the terminal. Future expansion includes third RTG row, additional ERTGs, and increase in acreage to handle 450,000 vessel lifts. Mariel, CapEx investments, infrastructure improvements. They have a refrigerated container capacity of 1,100 reefer plugs. As we know, the Cuban, I would say, farmers associations used to produce a lot of perishables, a lot of fruit, a lot of exports of mangoes, avocados, tomatoes, and with this capacity, you can really push the production of vegetables and fruits, providing lots of jobs to the Cuban community that are much needed now. And you have the infrastructure in place to take care of refrigeration from the point of the harvest, the stuffing into the container, the storing at the container terminals, and subsequent loading into the exports. This can provide a lot of the divisas that will be needed in Cuba.
That's right.
To accumulate funds for the imports for the reconstruction of Cuba. That's what we see.
Are they exporting anything right now? Or?
Minimal. They're exporting some lobster, shrimp, little seafood, tobacco, the limited production.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Rum, and that's it. There's not much more, you know.
Okay.
But they have the infrastructure to support the restart of the agricultural industry in the country. If they
And how long would it take to rev these things up to date, like the Port of Mariel? How long would that take?
I would say within 6 months.
Really? That fast?
That fast.
Wow.
Now they have the machinery in place.
Really?
So the cranes that are not up to date in maintenance will have to be completely reconstructed and serviced. So that takes it can be done quickly. But 6 months, it's a while. You know? But on the container handling equipment, they have 12 CPMZ diesel RTGs with 65-ton capacity. All their container handling equipment is manufactured by the Chinese in Shanghai. 3 top loaders, 2 reach stackers, 2 empty container handlers, and 45 tractors, mules. Okay, security and safety. That is a major issue in the U.S. Your terminals have to comply with the U.S. standards. Port Everglades Terminal manages and operates its own security services, regular meeting or exceeding federal, state, and local mandates and regulations. Security and safety procedures are deeply embedded in our operational SOPs, including personal access control, CCTV cameras, surveillance, and 24/7 manned security. You could see the inspections throughout the different pictures in the slide, from the entry of the container into the terminal, the recording of seals to make sure everything is with full integrity. And last, there's a camera recording of every license plate entering the facility along with the container number and the seal number. So there's no leaves left unturned here. Engineered for the future. Initially developed from a greenfield project, Port Everglades Terminals designed its facility to meet its interim and long-term operational goals. By diversifying from top loader stacking operation to its current of ERTGs, these improved methods bring along with the highest reefer capacity in our region. Port Everglades Terminal is uniquely qualified to meet your current and future needs. You can see the first slide in 2004, where it was developed from sand. It was filled. Fiber optic cable was laid down below the surface for connectivity. Then, in 2008, when the facility was already fully operational, you can see the stacking capacities, and now current with a mixture of top loaders and ERTGs to maximize the capacity, which is similar to the Maria port, where basically they dredged the channels into the facility and they filled out the port from the dredging. So they did a similar plan that we have.
So
And
is the dredging at Mariel, is it going to be needed as a consistent thing, or they just need a one-time dredging?
no, there's a yearly maintenance.
It's a yearly, and how about here? Do we do that here?
No, we don't, because it's totally different.
It's different,
It's
okay.
just only a single entry point, and it's very narrow. It's about 400 feet wide on the entrance of the channel into the
interesting.
port. And you have breakwaters and the intercoastal blocking any push out of sand, or shifting of sand within the facility. Okay. It's okay. Okay, efficiencies and diversity. In our shipping business, as a result of those efficiencies created from larger vessels, along with new or existing vessel sharing agreements and slot consolidations, Port Everglades Terminal regularly manages increased volumes brought as a result of our industry's consolidation and expanded trade lanes. Basically, the economies of scale have occurred in the shipping industry, where vessels increase their capacity from 2,000 TEU vessel capacity to 11,000 TEU vessel capacities. And the shipping lines have made vessel sharing agreements to share space on the vessels and maximize the economies of scale to reduce the cost of transportation in the big trade lanes. Transatlantic, the Far East, down the Suez Canal to the Middle East. Those are the prevailing lanes that you see a lot of these vessel sharing agreements.
Are all these post, like Panamax?
Superposed Panamax vessels.
But Panama Canal still hasn't been expanded.
No, the second phase of
It's already done?
it's already, it's been operational for the last 4 years, and they were limited before the expansion
Right, yeah.
to 6,000 TEU
Right,
vessels.
right.
Now they're handling 11,000 TEU vessels. And some of these ships are crossing the Panama Canal. Others are crossing via the Suez Canal.
Right.
So it's interesting how the increase of cargoes have changed.
Oh, my God.
And with the West Coast traffic jams and increase of imports, you're seeing a diversion of cargo to the East Coast direct via the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal. So it's interesting what's going on. Basically, you see a chart here of the number of vessel calls. If you look at 2017, we had 487 calls, and our volumes were 177,000 lifts. In 2018, they dropped to 331 vessel calls with 142,000 lifts. In 2021, we went up to 145,000 lifts with only 205 vessel calls. So the size of the vessel have increased, but the number of lifts have duplicated. And that forces you as a port to have the necessary infrastructure to discharge and load these ships on a timely basis.
Right.
So you have to invest more in cranes, in STS cranes alongside the bulkheads, in container handling equipment inside your facility. And that's a handicap that the Maria will have in the future because of the needed investment to handle these size type vessels at that facility. There we go. That's good. Here's our cruise vessel operations at Port Everglades. In addition to its cargo operations, Port Everglades Terminal manages passenger operations for the world's largest cruise lines and is recognized as a leading service provider and partner to the cruise industry. Over the course of the past 5 years, Port Everglades Terminal has expanded its cruise operations and today is the largest stevedoring company in Port Everglades. As you can see, the growth of the cruise calls and the number of passengers that embark and disembark per year. In 2017, for example, we had 360 vessel calls with 1.7 million passengers. In 2018, we had 410 vessel calls with 2.150 million passengers. In 2019, it went up to 440 calls with 2.2 million passengers. And then we had COVID hit, and we see the decline. But this is a potential for Cuba and the Cuban ports where you can attract a lot of tourism that, if you look at our economy in South Florida, it's a driver of employment and cash flow and cargo diversity, and you need to invest in your facilities. That's one thing that Cuba must do in the future. The smaller cruise vessels can call the Port of Havana, but they're limited to the 36-foot draft because of the tunnel. They need to address the bigger ships, and that's where Mariel will come into play. Cienfuegos, Matanzas. Matanzas is ideal because you got Varadero and you have La Habana on the other side, and you could provide a lot of destination tours for the tourism, and they have somewhat infrastructure in place to accommodate the
And
the
the
tourism.
distance is almost like Miami-Fort Lauderdale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. And they have the beaches, and they have the hotels, big hotel chains that can provide for the tours from the ship of Matanzas with a 40-minute ride right into Varadero. So if everything turns out well, this is one area where Cuba must act and attract, and this can lead to a lot of employment for the Cuban people. And it started when Obama opened it up, and Trump stopped it, but it looks like maybe there was a restart. We don't know. But it's a good industry, I would say. This is the data services for business critical clients. Basically, our terminal management system is supported by TideWorks technology and provides real-time inventories, intuitive planning tools, and clear communications with its terminal users and business-critical third party. Its forecast web portal provides real-time and accurate data to its global shipping community. Everybody interfaces into our network, from the distribution centers, brokers and forwarders, ocean carriers, shippers and receivers, inland carriers, U.S. Customs. You can access the system from anywhere in the world. It's through the internet, web portals. You can inquire about your container load, see if it's custom cleared, if you paid the ocean freight of the steamship line, if you need additional inspections of customs or agriculture or any of the federal governments. So it's very efficient, and it's critical for the movement of cargo inside your facility, because with the increase of trade into South Florida, if you don't have these systems, the dwell time of your containers at your facility can increase, and that will reduce your capacity greatly. This is our truck processing lanes. They're modern and efficient truck gates. Our semi-automated truck gates employ TideWorks Technologies Gate Vision software, which allow us to seamlessly integrate all key components of the gate transaction into a single intuitive user interface. Competitive advantage: Port Everglades terminal truck return times are second to none, assisted by a robust terminal operating system, container dispatching, messages provided real-time instruction to a highly skilled terminal staff, ultimately providing our community with the shortest truck return times in the region. Our ability to manage traffic flows with real-time instructions directly to yard personnel result in efficient and accurate responses while optimizing equipment utilization. Each container that is discharged from the vessel has a home address, a specific location that is recorded upon discharge. Each export container and empty container entered into the facility has a home address and an exact location. So when the trucker comes into the facility, he's assigned the container number and the location, so he's dispatched to that area. And that gives you a lot of velocity inside your terminal. There we go. No, ya se acabó. Yeah. Okay. New digital language in transportation. This is the latest attempt by the shipping community and the ports to address the digital language in systems throughout the supply chain. Efforts to develop international standards for the sharing and use of digital information throughout the supply chain took a significant step forward at a recent meeting in California. A group of public and private stakeholders from the ports of LA and Long Beach, senior leadership, along with the U.S. Department of Commerce, MARAD, and the FMC, beneficial cargo owners, truckers, retailers, equipment manufacturing, supply chains, transportation, and logistics agreed that there is a strong need for performance-based technology, neutral international standards for the exchange and use of digital information in the supply chain. They agreed on a national freight data portal that will enable global supply chain data exchange, relieving port and supply chain congestion, and improving trade competition. These efforts are taking priority in the U.S. as well as the EU and represents an unprecedented opportunity for the private sector and government to collaborate, develop world-leading digital standards to improve the efficiency of the supply chain's performance. Eventually, these innovative solutions will be available and implemented in Latin America and Cuba. This is the future. And due to the West Coast port congestions, you're seeing a strong approach to develop new technology to facilitate more efficiencies in the supply chain at the level of the ports. So that's happening now.
Frankie,
Let me ask you a question. How many employees do you have to run all this operation?
Good question. It all depends. When we have cruise ships together and container ships together, some days we employ over 800 people.
In one day?
In one day. And you're talking about 2 ports, so it's quite a
The lowest
task.
day, the lowest 200?
Lowest 200, yeah, I would say so.
Let me ask you something about the West Coast supply chain. Is that a manufactured situation, or is it just something that's naturally occurred?
Now, I think it was a post-COVID reaction to the shutdown of factories in China, and then the subsequent American consumer, where they saved a lot of money going out. They had more spending, discretionary spending.
So it should be getting back to normal, and then the East Coast is going to end up lowering.
I think it will balance out.
Yeah, it will balance out again.
The cost of inflation is going to affect the buying power of middle-class America, and that will affect the amount of imports. I think that in the future, the U.S. will diversify their manufacturing back to the States and to other near-source countries that have the ability to shorten the trade routes into the local U.S. economy, such as Central America, South America. I think that could benefit. The only thing is the investments made must be in stable countries where democracy is in place, where the risk of investment is justifiable, and where they have the human resource to comply with the production and manufacturing demanded by these industries. It's going to be interesting because things are changing rapidly in the global trade. We see a growth in the Vietnam manufacturing. We see a growth in India, and a lot of I believe a lot of new factories will be reopened in the U.S. The cost of goods is going up. You know, I mean, part of it's the cost of fuel, but I think everything is getting more expensive, and the changes from one year to the other one have been pretty drastic, you know. In summary, over 45 years of experience in maritime industry, all weather, 24/7, 365 capable facility, full service terminal and stevedoring service provider, transportation and logistic provider, operational self-sufficient, secure and safe facility, engineered to meet current and future operational needs, provides global community informational web portal, regional leader in recovering third-party ancillary fees and related costs, extending terminal service directly to business-critical clients, providing temporary storage solutions and cargo transfers, expediting inspections through a partnership efforts with CBP. In closing, we see that once the Cuban opening, the volume of imports projected to flow into Cuba will overwhelm Cuba Port's capacity in Maria Port. Additional ports of entry will have to be quickly developed to handle the overflow. Matanzas, Cienfuegos, Santiago de Cuba, with the use of mobile cranes that can be sourced in short order, that can be accomplished. It will take some time to build up that infrastructure, but it's got to be an orderly plan, I would say, reconstruction of the country. Roll-on, roll-off vessels that require minimum port infrastructure will be a major part of the transportation into the Cuban ports. Development of port infrastructure to accommodate the cruise industry through the Cuban ports for cruise calls for the larger cruise vessels in Mariel, Matanzas, Cienfuegos, and Santiago de Cuba could play a key factor in the growth of the tourism industry throughout Cuba. A major employer, a major source of revenue for the country will be the cruise industry. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. Any questions? It's a good question.
Well, Brazil. The issue there, I think that the vessel sizes increased. The vessel sizes increased. The draft restriction going into Havana was only 36 feet. Those ships that were trading into the Caribbean were going draft up to 40 feet. So they weren't able to get those ships into Havana. It would be too costly to dedicate a fleet of small-sized vessel into Havana for the imports. So they got the free money from Brazil. They developed the infrastructure and the port, and they got the Singaporeans to run the facility, PSA, which is a big conglomerate. So for them, it was a win-win situation. They started doing warehousing and trying to source out, I would say, free trade facilities, warehousing in Mariel. They weren't able to attract many companies into that facility because a lot of companies didn't want to invest in Cuba.
Of course.
And
you can't blame them.
That's what's happening there. The facility is there. We don't know the conditions of that infrastructure that was placed back in 2010. After 12 years, if you don't maintain those cranes and those top loaders and the container handlers, you don't know what the actual, I would say, capacity based on your current maintenance of that facility. So it will be a learning process.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because Emilio,
Oh, yeah.
is Emilio here?
How do you guys are a private company. How does, like, for example, the Port of Miami, they handle the law enforcement, the security and that?
Yeah.
But you guys are a private company that handle everything else?
Yeah, we handle the terminal. We have a long-term lease with Miami-Dade County. And
It's
we
a
handle,
lease.
yes.
Okay, and then how do companies like Merck and they just load the ship, they have the ships and the containers, that's it?
Yes.
They don't handle,
They
it's like,
subcontract.
so it's basically Miami-Dade government you run the port, and then the importers like Merck and all that have the ships and the containers.
Right. There's 4 terminal operators in the Port of Miami.
Oh, there are, okay.
There's different conglomerates.
Okay, and in
we
Port
have-
Everglades?
In Port Everglades, it's also 4 different terminals.
Oh, okay.
3 are carrier-owned, and we are a joint venture between the largest global container carrier in the world, MSC, and our company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have joint ventures in Miami and Port Everglades.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, great. And before, do you think that the cruise ship industry is a priority in Cuba or the cargo?
I think they both are.
Yeah,
I mean-
but
I mean, the
if you
cargo-
import cargo, there's not enough economy right now to support that, is there?
No.
So maybe the cruise ship.
As an economic accelerator,
Yeah.
I would say the cruise industry, that's priority.
That's something to think about because,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no infrastructure and the economy is so non-existent, hence because of the government. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,